Wow, good day out there and good to see you today. My name is James Komolafe. I am lead consultant at the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment Resources, also known by acronym as SABA Resources. In SABA Resources, we're out to articulate so that we can align it and get the result out for organizations, individuals, and the public sector. So today we have an assignment before us, and it is to present to Dangote Driving Academy the evidence of a research-based work concluded recently by a group of behaviorists in the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment to find a lasting solution to the issue of the incessant breakdown and reduce accident on our roads. This effort is to beef up the work of Dangote Driving Academy so that the drivers can come up with not only the best practices, but to be able to comport themselves in such a way as to drive with excellence, where fatality figures are brought down to zero or equals zero. So welcome to Performance Evaluation Assessment Test for Dangote drivers. It is a performance-based assessment quotient to ensure commitment and compliance to the rules and obligations of Dangote drivers, even as it is encoded for their responsibilities. So the basis of this effort is to support Dangote Driving Academy. This research is performance-based. It is empirical, customized, error-proof, interesting, intrinsic, educative, cost-effective, seamless, and very comprehensive. And we're looking at this to be able to position Dangote Group as the first brand in driving culture. So this effort is geared towards making Dangote Group of companies and her drivers position themselves as the first brand drivers on our roads. It is also to entrench the fact that the work process should harmonize with policies as it is entrenched even for the drivers. We want to see this work as setting a pace through Dangote drivers on our roads so that we can reduce carnages, accidents, and calamities on our roads. We're looking at a situation where drivers should be mentally and physically wired so that both mechanics and psychology can blend together for effectiveness and efficiency of the road users, led by Dangote drivers. We're looking at how the rate of infraction from Dangote drivers can be equals to zero, if not zero, meaning that accidents and infractions, mishaps on our road will be based on external influence and not because of errors and misfit from Dangote drivers. So the performance of the truck driver becomes an important tool for this research. How well he drives, what he drives, and when he drives becomes very consequential in this matter. So it is based on a priori expectation as dictated by their rules and responsibility when it is carried out. Looking at the approaches to this research, we engage two approaches: the internal approach and the external approach. The internal approach is an interpersonal framework developed from the angle of the driver himself, while the external approach is an external evaluation based on other sources available, whether primary sources or secondary sources. And this critical success factor of their endeavor as drivers is largely dependent upon satisfying the performance aims and objectives associated with their work as entrenched by Dangote cement factory. So how can Dangote truck drivers perform better and much more credibly? That is what this research is out to achieve. We want to test and measure ways by which informations are collected and gathered so that proper evaluation and decision can be arrived at. So what is the evaluation process here all about from Saba Resources? It is a whole measurement based on 6 classifications. And what is it about? It is a cyclical affair involving the selection of characteristics to be measured. The selection of a suitable and most appropriate method of measurement is also taken into consideration. We're also looking at the collection of data from either the driver themselves or their supervisors or a third party who comes in to give a report. So the vital details of this assessment policy, which is called Performance Evaluation Assessment Test by acronym PEAT 101 for drivers, includes the range of the following: the name of the driver, his telephone number, age, the truck number that he drives. This assessment test called for objectivity in rating the driver upon 10 performance variables. And these performance variables are the summation of his roles and responsibility as a driver for Dangote cement factory. In this assessment, the driver can either score 100% or 10%, and it is wired based on the principle of cognitive behavioral therapy, where what a man thinks affects how he feels, that goes ahead to determine what he does and what is the work here it is driving. We want to be able to test these drivers based on their roles and responsibility, how he or his supervisor feels, how they think, that goes ahead to also dictate what is done on the road. So the evaluation is based on 10 options, from option 1 to option 10. When a driver is scored 1, means the outcome is dismal on the road. Where he scores 2, that's poor outcome. Where he scores 3, that's a tolerable outcome. 4 stands for fear. While 5, adequate. 6, good. 7, respectable. 8, excellent. 9, magnified. While 10 is perfect. These are all driving indications from 1 to 10 for the rating. Now, the performance variables are just, like I said, the 10 credible roles and responsibility, like how well does the driver in person transport finished goods and raw materials to and fro plants to destination? How well does he inspect vehicles for mechanical items and safety issues and perform preventive maintenance. Like that, like that. Those are the 10 upon which compliance and performance is being evaluated. So how do we calculate and audit the driver's performance in percentage over a period of time? It can either be through a snap check or the organization deciding to make it periodic, maybe monthly or bi-weekly, whatever works based on the operation in-house. You will multiply the number of occurrences in each column 1 to 10 with the integer on top and write the values down for each of the categories score. So what are we saying? These questions are numbered 1 to 10. So whoever is assessing the driver in person will pick each of these performance variables, which are his roles and responsibilities as a driver, and rate it based on the rate of assessment above, which is the graph 1 to 10. If the driver in person being assessed under question 1 is good, so the assessor goes to 5 in front of question 1 and simply take it. And that is how it applies from question 1 to question 10. So what happened? At the end of all of the 10 assessments, based on the scale above from 1 to 10, each of the column 1 to 10 carries some specific mark. So what to do to arrive at the percentage score or driving performance audit is to simply look at each of the column, multiply the number of ticks with the number on top, and then write the answer at the bottom of the assessment as the category score. So meaning, if under 2, which is poor, the driver scores 3 times. So we'll say 3 times 2 and write the figure down at this category score as 6. If in column 5, for example, where the assessment is good and the driver scores 5 times, then we'll multiply 5 times 5, which is 25. We'll write it down. When it is done across board, you then add up all the category score to determine the total score in percentage. And in so doing, we'll come out with the cluster of his performance. So the direct implication of the audit in percentage comes out in 6 stages. Where a driver scores between 0 to 39, he is needing detention as an outcome. Where he scores 40 to 50, he is needing attention for an outcome, his driving outcome. Where he scores 51 to 60, he is needing comprehension. In case he scores between 61 and 70, he is needing manifestation. 71 and 80 talks about extension. While where a driver scores 81 to 100, wow, that is a model driver needing distinction there. His outcome is simply distinction. Now, we're going to interpret what this 6 cluster means as the direct outcome of the percentage audit. The direct implication of the audit outcome, like I said, is in these 6 stages. So let's analyze where a driver scores 0 to 39, meaning he's needing detention. And this is the meaning. Number one, it means that the driver in person has no clue at all about his driving responsibility. He is a dangerous driver. He is careless and reckless, and he will do anything outside the bracket. There is a sense of lawlessness and senselessness in driving. He is needing to be detained and taken around all the stuff so that he can be lectured, trained, and retrained to be able to master the driving culture with his requirement. He is not to be used until the fourth test is satisfied. So it's not enough to say the driver's outcome is detention cluster. We must also check through the 4 bases of treatment. And what are the 4 bases? The root cause analysis, the trend analysis, the point blank analysis, and of course, the standard deviation, which we will explain later. However, when the driver scores between 40 to 50, meaning needing attention, is just a little better than the driver needing detention. In the driver needing detention, we say, hey, wait a minute, you can't drive for now. You are to be detained and treated. While in attention, we say, hey, please quickly finish up with what you are doing and let's attend to you, because there are issues radically wrong with your driving on our highways. So just a little clue about his driving life and responsibility is known to him. That's why he's needing attention. He is also a dangerous driver, and he drives a bit careless and reckless. Could also do certain things outside the bracket when the opportunity shows up, and that's the difference. He is lawless and senseless by proxy. He is needing attention from time to time to be educated and sensitized so that he could be reworked and observed. He is also not to be used until the 4th test is satisfied, which is the point blank, the root cause, the trend analysis, and the standard deviation. What about when a driver needs comprehension as an outcome based on his performance audit? It means he scores between 51 and 60%, and this is the interpretation. He has certain clue about his driving life and responsibility, but lack many things by character. He is a fair driver, a bit careful, and not necessarily reckless. He will do all he can to keep within the bracket of his driving rules when the opportunity shows up. He is lawful and sensible when in full grasp of what to do. He is needing to be taught from time to time to be mainstreamed into the full grasp of things. He is to be used and motivated as we sort out the vacuums and infractions given by the 4 tests of point blank analysis, root cause analysis, trend analysis, and the standard deviation. When a driver scores between 61 and 70, that is the manifestation cluster. And what's the meaning? Oh, that is a passionate driver. And he's passionate about his driving and responsibility, but lack few things by periodic errors. He's a good driver, of course, careful and not reckless, needing to be stretched the more in order to expand because he's needing manifestation. He will go ahead to do all he can to keep within the bracket of his driving culture all the time, save that he needs more challenges to be at his best. He is lawful and sensible on the road with many wishes, needing platform to expedite his actions. He is happy to carry out his work all the time and sensitized. He is also being mainstreamed into the full grasp of things. He is to be stretched through the outcomes of the infraction given by the four tests of point-blank analysis, the root cause analysis, trend analysis, and standard deviation. The driver who scores between 71 and 80% is in the extension cluster of driving. What does that mean? It means he is a passionate driver, passionate about his driving life and responsibility, but needing just to maintain and expand his protocols over time through self-mastery. He is a great driver, careful, non-reckless, doing the needful, no infraction observable within. He will go ahead to do all that is needed to be done to keep within the bracket of his driving rules and culture all of the times. He's lawful and sensible in operation, with many wishes becoming conduct as he expedites actionable steps. He is fully grasping and carrying out at all times his roles as a driver. He is a driver who will naturally stretch himself up to his game a little through the outcomes of the four tests: the point blank, root cause, trend analysis, and the standard deviation. When a driver scores between 81 and 100, that is a driver in distinction. He is called a model driver, very passionate about his driving life and responsibility, needing just to maintain and expand his protocol over time through self-mastery. He is a great driver and a model driver. Very careful, not reckless at all, doing the needful, no observable infraction within. He will do all that is needed to be done to keep within the bracket of his driving culture all of the time. He is very lawful and sensible in operation, with many wishes becoming conduct as he expedites actionable steps both in principle and by practice. He is fully versed in carrying out all of the times, and he is sensitized about what driving entails and could even mentor others as a driver. So to keep up himself and maintain status quo through the outcomes given by the four tests of point-blank analysis, root cause analysis, trend analysis, and standard deviation. This is the best driver who is best at his best. And this is our desire by this test, that all Dangote truck drivers will be model drivers when they score 81 and above in their periodic performance evaluation assessment test, which we have chronicled as PIT 101. So what's the process involved? The collected data will either be processed by a group of articulators from Saba Resources or articulators trained for Dangote Driving Academy. So the process involved is based on four critical simulations of standard deviation, point-blank analysis, root cause analysis, and the trend analysis. So now let's take them one by one. How are they applied? After discovering the performance audit and then determine the performance cluster with those interpretations on a generic note. So how do we now apply the rule of standard deviation? And what is it meant to do? Standard deviation checks on the driver will check his integrity, So the integrity check is seen through standard deviation. The rate of deviation from reality on ground is also examined by standard deviation. We will also look at the power of concentration. And then, what are his distractive modes? What are the things that distract him, that could lead him off course, that will make him to derail? Is checked by standard deviation. Then capacity for undue accumulation and the degree of aptitude for compliance. So when we apply the standard deviation check, these are the few things we check for. How about point blank analysis? What does it check in a driver's result and evaluation after the cluster is determined? It is the critical point of infraction or driving misbehavior. Point blank will put that out. The spot on ground based on performance is also sorted. The point where concentration is lost is discovered. We want to see what exactly is that distraction. What are the undue accumulation? And what is making the driver not to comply? Point blank analysis will spot that out. How about the root cause analysis? It will check the following in the driver: the rationale behind the infraction or the driver's misbehavior. Why the spot is created for an upheaval for the driver will also be seen. Why concentration has become an issue with the driver will be brought out. Why the distraction is taking the driver's attention will also be critically examined and spooled out. Why will a driver accumulate the unnecessary during driving? The root cause analysis will bring it out. The driver's inability to comply, is it as a result of habit or addiction? And what's the way out? These are all that the root cause analysis and many more will bring out. It is root cause, so the issue of why comes to play here. How about the trend analysis? What will it check on the driver? The trend analysis will examine the driver in particular in the area of three issues. What are they? Whether he is driving at a low ebb of vibration, or at the medium ebb of vibration, or at a higher ebb of vibration. And these three ebbs, low, medium, and high, will now tell us what happens about the infraction or the driving misbehavior. To also go ahead to tell us the problem spot for the driver, the concentration mode, the degree of distraction to his attention, and how deep the level of unnecessary accumulation and the game of non-compliance, whether it's just one-off or it has become a regular call. You could either be on the low, medium, or high. That is what trend analysis will tell us about the driver. So, what next after this, according to the research finding, and what must be done? How then is the outcome handled is the next stage. A whole lot of psychotherapy is involved here because it is beyond just papers and ordinary finding. We are saving the driver. Everyone is connected to him. Who is connected to him is also affected in the process. And the next victim and the relation of the victim is taken into cognizance here. And also, the saving of the reputation of Dangote organization is key. The vehicle, the automobile involved is also very vital. The psyche of the average Nigerian and other nationals where Dangote truck runs is also keenly important. So that is why what Dangote Academy does with the report of each driver matters a whole lot. So what do we do? How is the outcome handled? The report or treatment carries the following revelations when it is properly managed. The degree of infraction of the driver is seen. His performance evaluation over time is benchmarked. The red alert indicators is seen. His high and low points are also come to the fore. The relative driving audit is determined. The infractions and the loopholes are seen. The on-the-spot assessment of the driving habit is also taken into consideration here. And at last, the next stage for which the driver could be sanctioned or rewarded is also brought to play. So what is the critical role of the articulators, whether from cyber resources or men and women trained by cyber resources for Dangote Driving Academy? Their roles are simply 1, to reconcile reports with reality. 2, to check on drivers' attitude through questioning. 3, to perform driving reconciliation statements based on report. It is also to assess and interpret those results. It is also to give a statement of declaration and recommendation to the management for appropriate sanction or reward, whichever case it may be for a particular driver. So policy recommendations on driving issue can ultimately come to the fore. That is the role of the articulators. So what is the purpose of the implementation? The implementation of those decisions by the drivers under evaluation for the much needed adjustment and better outcomes is so fundamental. All of the above stages should be completed for the driver or by the driver in line with his supervisors, so that the data collected and the decisions arrived at can pave the way forward. So given the performance evaluation assessment test policy for Dangote Driving Academy, we'd like to round up this session by outlining the 50 benefits of this assessment policy for Dangote Driving Academy when it is run. 1. The assessment policy and test will help to ascertain the current state of perfect fit in driving. The state of the driver's life comes to the fore here. 2. No more trial and error with any driver, in spite of the reality on ground and the sanctity of life. The driver's capacity is seen. 3. The SWOT analysis of the driver is in display through this assessment and treatment. So what are we saying? The strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat variables of the driver is brought to the fore by this critical analysis. Number 4, advantage. False pretense and make-believe in driving is eradicated. 5. Point of error and correction comes to the fore for immediate action. 6. An a priori expectation is predetermined by the superior of the driver over claims. 7. The rate of carnage on our roads is brought down so considerably through this assessment policy. 8. Damage control is minimized and controlled on a very stringent note. 9. The driver in person need not struggle to drive when the chips are down, because the fact on ground will speak volumes. Number 10, advantage. It is a preventive strategy par excellence. So we don't wait until the driver collapses while driving or while the infractions are made before we retire him from work or call him for treatment. Point number 11, as far as advantage is concerned, it provides seamless communication between a particular driver and his supervisor. 12, driving excellence becomes a function of skills, knowledge, and attitude, which are the three bases for any training skill. Number 13, presumption and assumption of the driver's audit is warded off. It's a driving in reality, no more presumption. Point number 14, vehicular breakdown on an incessant note is curtailed, and that of course translates to reduction in cost of repairs and other accessories. 15, depreciation cost. The cost of wear and tear is reduced on both the human and material resources. 16, driving psychology is excellent and superb upon hitting the ground running on Nigerian roads and other roads in Africa. 17, no room for discrimination or favoritism. It offers an objective assessment. 18, it is a self-awareness policy for every driver for accurate judgment and definite response. 19, it is competency analysis for Dangote drivers at a glance. 20, PIT 101 offers a motivation for complete and comprehensive readiness from the supervisor to the driver himself. 21, a great basis for sanction and reward is offered periodically. 22, personal framework becomes mainstream by every driver and line managers. 23, early reportage saves lives and properties on our roads. 24, errant behaviors such as unauthorized haulage and theft is greatly minimized. 25, this performance evaluation assessment test for Dangote drivers is a call for effectiveness and efficiency. 26, assessment of drivers wear a human face upon which inability or defiance to change is penalized accordingly. 27, the point-blank analysis of evaluation gives an accurate point of infraction and the way out of the same to the management of Dangote. 28, this assessment is an analytical psychometric test that harmonizes the authority with the employee's engagement strategy. 29, a holistic structure is reinvigorated based on responsibility quotient. 30, no hiding place for inadequacies and frequent flaws of drivers on our roads. Room for correction open, for adjustment on an immediate note. 31, this assessment test and quotient offers a curative strategy as well. It is not just preventive. We can also use the outcome of the test and the treatment for curative strategy. 32, it introduces an element of bonding between the supervisor and the driver and the customers themselves. 33, it restores authority to the driver. 34, responsibilities can easily be tracked. 35, this assessment policy for Dangote's drivers offers the room for introspection for critical thinking. 36, it is a value creation strategy for Dangote Driving Academy, the supervisors and other line managers. 37, it is a tool for natural driving revolution for total transformation strategy. 38, it is an agent of discovery and recovery at the same time. 39. It is a critical initiative to drivers and their assessors. 40. It offers a paradigm shift from the curative strategies to pure undiluted preventive strategy. Remember, a stitch in time will always go ahead to save 9. Advantage number 41. The people before productivity figure as a policy and a mantra is heightened. Sound people, the drivers, will produce sound results. 42. Truck drivers' commitment becomes heightened, not essentially by coercion, but by conviction. And the low-hanging fruits inherent in PIT 101 will stand. 43. Value chain initiative is created because the driver's discretion and ingenuity is brought to bear. 44. A room for improvement is created in the process of regular assessment. It is a melting point between a supervisor and a truck driver in particular. 45. Facts and figures hitting the ground running provides a peaceful atmosphere where sentiments are warded off and unnecessary rivalry and animosities are avoided, whether between the driver and other road users, or the driver and the supervisor, or the driver and the client himself. 46. The driver's behavioral health fundamental is heightened as he develops better level of relationship within and outside the workplace, which is the Dangote cement factory. 48. Calamities and tragedies are turned around through a reliable data based on analytical approach. 49. Dangote Group of Companies is better positioned in terms of the initiative. And then 50. There is the cutting off of medical expenses on a corporate note. These are the advantages Dangote Driving Academy stands to benefit when performance evaluation assessment test policy is brought to the fore. Driving excellence as at its peak results because the driver knows too well that he is being assessed objectively. How do we go and where do we go from here? Seeing is believing. When opportunity is offered to the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment Resources, we will demonstrate this and take the test, giving a few cluster of staff and drivers involved. Thank you so very much. Long live Dangote Cement, long live Dangote drivers, and long live Nigerian roads, Nigerian citizens, and every other person and place where we have the Dangote factory. Thank you so very much, and talk with you next time. Cheers.